This is the Future of Marketing video series, and today we've got Gil David from Run DMG, a Facebook ads expert, with us. So we're just going to have a chat around your experience with Facebook ads and how you ended up doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So we want to start off, Gil, if you could just give us a bit of background to your career, if you like, and let us know how and when you ended up specialising in Facebook ads.
So I guess my career in marketing goes back to year 2000. I was a fresh-faced 18-year-old just going to uni. And I was going to Lancaster University, which was, it still is actually, I think it's even better now, one of the top business schools in the country. And I was studying marketing. And I kind of look back at it and laugh because so much of the stuff I do now, it wasn't even around then. Like Facebook wasn't around then, WhatsApp wasn't around then, Instagram hadn't even been thought of, nothing like that. But I think it gave me a good grounding in basics of marketing. And back then it was the 4 Ps, whereas now you've got, I think, 7 or 8, something like that. So I did my degree there, and I also did a minor in psychology, which I think was quite good. I found that particularly interesting, and that's quite relevant, I think, to a lot of the stuff I do now. So then I finished uni. Just about that time, my dad was in air conditioning, and the company he was working for went bust, so he was sort of going out on his own. So it was kind of a natural thing. I don't know how it happened exactly, but I ended up basically agreeing to be like sales and marketing for the company, and he was doing the engineering work. So that was good. So I helped him set the company up, but the problem with that was I was doing too much of the donkey work myself. And my dad and my brother, they're great with their hands. They got all that in their genes. Me, I'm up here. So I was doing too much of that kind of stuff. So I ended up moving away from that. My dad still runs a business with my brother, and I got into health clubs. So I was a sales consultant in health clubs for a few years, progressed up to sales and marketing manager. Then I was actually running the health clubs. Then I ended up in Northern Ireland through my ex-girlfriend. I've been here 8 years now. And my last job that I was actually working for someone was managing a health club up on the North Coast. And what I found was, first of all, I got a bit bored of the industry. I'd always wanted to run my own business. So at the stage I started my own business, I was 35, and I thought I was moving down to Belfast anyway. If I didn't do it now, I'd never do it. And I thought about what I'd enjoyed about what I was doing, and it was mainly the marketing and sales side of things rather than managing people, dealing with receptionists turn up late for work and all that kind of rubbish. And I'd also been running Facebook ads, which I really enjoyed. So when I actually went out on my own, I started off like I think a lot of people would, as more of a general digital marketing consultant, doing little bits of everything, which I quickly realised I hated because I felt like I was wearing 10 different hats every day. I wasn't getting the best results from my clients. And I couldn't keep up with stuff either. So, as you know yourself with video, everything moves so quickly, and especially Facebook ads and Google, I think, is the same to an extent, that I really found that if I wanted to get the best of my clients, I had to specialise in one thing. I thought, what did I enjoy the most? Why did I start my own business? It was to do something that I enjoyed, and that was Facebook ads, and what am I best at as well. I think that's partly because it combines 2 things that I really enjoy, which is being creative, because you can be creative, with videos and images and all that kind of stuff, and also the kind of the analytical side of things. So I really like analysing data. And I think that's where Google's a bit too heavy on that side for me, rather than the creative part. So it combines those 2 really well. So yeah, that's when I decided, after only a few months of being out on my own as a digital marketing consultant, that I wanted to specialise just in Facebook ads. And then that's when and that's all I've done literally for the last 2.5 years now.
Okay. So, no doubt you've seen ads manager accounts full of all wondrous setups and things. I'd imagine, from my own experience and knowing I've done this myself, that there's a tendency for people just to launch in the ads manager and decide, I'm going to start running an ad.
Yeah.
And then starting to go through the audience segment and picking a creative and uploading it, away you go. What work should people be doing before that in order to make sure that they're going to run a campaign that's actually going to work?
Yeah. I would say to people that there's a huge amount of work you should be doing before you even start running any ads. And the first one is knowing your numbers. So knowing what you can afford to spend, instead of picking, I'm going to spend £10 a day or £20 a day, or, if you're a smaller business, or I'm going to spend £500 a day for a larger business. Think about your numbers, what you're trying to get from your investment in ads, what your LTV, your lifetime value of a customer is, so what you can afford to spend to acquire them in the first place, which is all stuff you have to work out. If you're an e-commerce business, what's your average order value? So you're selling, I don't know, t-shirts or something like that. If your average t-shirt value is £30, when you take the cost of goods out, all your costs out, what can you afford to spend to actually sell that t-shirt in the first place? So those are all the kind of numbers you need to know and understand it in the business end of things before you even think about running ads. And then once you know what you can afford to spend, I always look at first the audience. You need to understand your audience. What do they look like? So instead of just trying to target anyone, think about what sort of age are they? The people that are going to buy, say if it is t-shirts, what kind of age group are they? Where are they? What interests are they likely to have? Demographics, all that kind of stuff. So researching them, and that's not so much just for targeting, but also when you're writing ad copy, so you know how you're going to speak to them, because you want to be as specific as possible as you can be with your ad copy, rather than just trying to be general. That's another mistake I see people making. They just try and, what's that old saying? If you try and be everything to everyone, you're nothing to anyone. Is that how it goes? Mm-hmm. So being specific in your copy and speaking to that customer avatar or buyer persona, whatever you want to call it. So mapping some of those out. And most businesses wouldn't just have one buyer persona. They might have 2 or 3, and that's fine. As long as you map those out and understand those before you actually start running ads, because then that tells you what you should be saying in your ad copy, what kind of creative should you have. If it's maybe a slightly younger audience, does it need to be really colourful and stand out? And then that informs if you're running videos, what kind of videos you're going to run, what sort of style they're going to be. So all that kind of stuff, and that's things you need to understand before you even press the publish button on any ads.
Okay. What are the most common mistakes that you'd see whenever you take over a Facebook ads account if you're taking over a new customer?
I think one of the main ones is only running one ad in an ad set and kind of throwing all your eggs in one basket, which doesn't work, to be quite honest. So I'd always run multiple versions of ads. If it's, I'm sure you can get at least 3 to 5 different images or videos to test at one time, running different ad copies as well, because you have to give Facebook options and then it will find which one's the best one, but you have to give it those options in the first place. Whereas if you only run one ad, you're not giving it any room to work with anything, and if the creative's off or the copy's off, the messaging's off, it's not going to work. And then that's when people say, Facebook ads, I'll try Facebook ads, they didn't work. It's not the Facebook ads, it was what you were giving Facebook to work with in the first place. Okay. So that's one of the main mistakes I see, people just throwing all their eggs in one basket with one ad basically and running that.
Okay. And with the growth, given the requirement then to create those multiple ad sets, and with the growth of retargeting campaigns and remarketing campaigns, targeting people at different stages of buyer journeys, what impact has that had on the creative process, if you like, and the number of assets that then need to be created to run successful campaigns?
Yeah, I think it's not just that. I think it's the direction of the platform as well, where there's more demand now for creative and better creative, because Facebook's, I'm not going to get too detailed because it's quite geeky and technical, but Facebook's algorithm's got more advanced now, and the machine learning is better. So you can just run an ad set to a whole country, give it an age range, and if the creative and the ads are good enough, that'll get you better results than trying to be too clever with your targeting. Okay. But the creative has to be on point in the first instance. So that's where there's more of a demand for testing different creative, producing more creative to combat if ads are burning out. Because if you run an ad for a while, if you're spending a good amount on it, it will burn out eventually, and you'll have to change something about it, whether it's the creative, the copy, or the headline. And then retargeting, so retargeting, people will get bored of seeing the same ad a lot quicker in retargeting, depending on how you're retargeting people. So if you're only retargeting them for 7 days, they're not as likely to get burned out as if you're hitting people. Anyone's hit your website for the last month with the same ad over and over, they're going to get bored, and then your performance is going to go down the drain. There's definitely more of a demand now for creative and better creative as well, because it's the main. I look at it as that's the main lever you can pull with your Facebook ads these days. Better creative, rather than trying to hack clever targeting or different bidding strategies and things like that. They can all work to an extent, But the best thing I'd say to people is get a really good ad together, and it'll work to pretty much any audience once you've got the right ad.
Has there been a shift almost back towards the creative in recent times? Because for a number of years there seemed to be a feeling that it was all about the targeting and all about the under the bonnet stuff that you did with the ad and who you put it front and how your sequencing worked and all that stuff. And more recently you're seeing more conversations around refocusing back in on the creative, and it's just going back to what the best advertising campaigns that have ever been run have always been based on the best creative. Yeah. Having all these additional targeting options is fantastic, but if you don't get the balance right between who you put it in front of and the creative, then it's destined to fail if either of those things isn't right.
100%, and it's more destined to fail if the creative's off, because it used to be, probably going back maybe about even a year or so, you could hack your way to good results by trying to be clever with audience targeting and manual bidding, things like that, even if the creative and the ads weren't that great in the first place. And now I think it's also because people are seeing so many ads and they're so used to seeing ads across Instagram and Facebook that unless your ad is a good quality ad, it just gets lost in the noise. And that's where, like I say, if you get a good ad that works, it'll work generally to almost any audience, and you don't have to mess about trying to hack creative and hack bidding strategies to try and get good results.
So the suggestion then would be from that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that invest in the time in advance of campaigns to really nail down what the right creative for this is as important as investing time in targeting and sequencing and all that stuff as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the things that I do, with a new client, apart from what I mentioned earlier about kind of the audience research and digging into the business metrics and things like that, is sitting down and doing like a creative brief, and then having a good bank of images and videos and assets that we can use, over not just a couple of weeks, but over the first couple of months at least. Because especially those first couple, and this is another thing that people I think don't always understand when they start running Facebook ads, which is the first 6 to 8 weeks you can't really expect too much back from them, because you have to be testing different creative, different copy, different audiences as well. And then it's only when you find audiences that work, and you've also built up your warmer audiences for retargeting as well. Especially if you're starting from scratch, it does take a couple of months to start building up your traffic to the website. And then that's when you start seeing a return. So and that's where it's important in those first 8 weeks to be testing different creative. And even then, even when I find ads that work, I still always put a small amount of budget, even if it's only 5% of budget, into creative testing all the time. Okay. So that if ads do start burning out, there's always hopefully something else that I've seen working in test ad sets that we can kind of roll out, and that keeps the results steady.
And people have a multitude of options available to them whenever they decide to launch a campaign. Are there any creative formats or asset types that work best in what you've seen with the campaigns you're running?
I think people are always told, you might not like this too much, but video.
Obviously.
And it's not always the case. Video is great, and especially if it's a newer brand, because there's, as well as trying to get conversions, there's obviously branding aspects to it. You can introduce people to a brand more through video than you can just from a static image, which is fair enough. But especially a lot of the time in retargeting, I find static images work best. I think it's partly because watching the video even in itself is a bit of a distraction for people. So if you are retargeting people, say, that have added to cart and not checked out in the last 3-4 days, then really all you need to do is just remind them that they haven't checked out for whatever reason. If it's because the phone rang or the dinner was ready or something happened, then really all you need to do is just show them an ad with an image that reminds them, oh, flip, I forgot. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in this, but I forgot to buy that. I'll go back and buy it now. Whereas if it's a video, then they might think, oh, I don't have time to watch this video, or I'm in the work toilet, so I don't want people hearing whatever this video is about. So that's where, even just a static image that reminds them, did you forget to check out? That works better a lot of the time than video. So I would say video is good, and especially if you can get good quality videos done, or there's some really good templates in Facebook now that you can use if you don't have a proper video done yourself, that you can make slideshows in with good transitions and text overlays and things like that. But yeah, don't rule out static images. And I think another thing that's important in the format is the sizing. So I think there's still things floating around where they say a Facebook ad should be, I think it's 1900 by 628, like landscape, which was from about 2 years ago, and it just doesn't work now because they really stand out as ads because they're so small on the screen. So what you should be using is 1080 by 1080, or 1080 by 1350. So that's either a square image or video as well, or 4:5, that ratio. And then they're the ones you see, straight away. It looks a bit more like an organic post because they take up a lot more of the screen and they get more attention as well that way.
And the results show that those differences in the format make an impact on how campaigns perform.
9 times out of 10, I don't even test. I used to test landscape videos or images against square versions because it was an easy test to do. But then, 9 times out of 10, the square version would smash the landscape version. So it's not even something that I test now. If all I can get is a landscape version of something, and I can't crop it to square, then I'll try and work with that. But I always tell clients, everything should be the square or in a 4:5 ratio.
Okay, and you hear a lot of conversations on. A lot of people are very opinionated around the to boost or not to boost sort of conversation. So, what's your opinion on whether people should be boosting their organic Facebook posts?
I actually think there's a place for it, which might surprise a lot of people. I know there's some people who won't be surprised because I've had arguments with them before about it. So going back a little while, I would have said no. But now these days, because organic reach is so bad for most pages, and people moan about, my posts aren't getting seen by anyone. I think even if you don't have much money for ads, there's still some value in at least boosting your best posts, even if it's just for a few pounds over a week, just to get out to more of your audience, and keep building warmer audiences to retarget. And then even if someone's running proper ads, so even some of my bigger clients, I'll still spend a few pound or a few dollars a day on boosting some of the best posts that I see out to a wider audience. Because if something does well organically, the likelihood is it will do well as an ad. And actually taking some of those and using them as proper ads, if there's a call to action on them, they're some of my best ads in the last few months for some clients. So there's definitely still value in boosting, and it's not something where I'd say 100% don't do it, because I do think there's a place for it if it's done as part of a strategy, which I think is a big difference, because I think a lot of businesses, the smaller ones especially, use it. That's kind of their Facebook ads, and all they do is they click the boost button, £20 on this post, it's getting engagement and a few comments, and that's it.
Okay.
Whereas if it's an actual part of a strategy, where if you're trying to build warmer audiences or reach more people, or it's part of you're spending more on proper Facebook ads and it's part of that, then there's definitely a place for it.
I mean, yourself, and I know from opening up the ads manager accounts and YouTube analytics and Google analytics and everything. So we've never had as much data coming at us, and sometimes it's hard to know what stuff to pay attention to, and often the temptation can be to let's look at the best performing metrics and report on those because they're the ones that make us look like we're doing the best job. In terms of anybody running their own Facebook ad campaigns or wanting to look at the analytics for other people who are running them, could you talk us through some of the metrics that you think are important to look at sort of top of funnel, mid funnel and conversion level?
I'm going to have to give you an answer here which is, it sounds like a cop-out, but it applies to almost anything with Facebook ads, which is it depends.
Yeah, you've heard that a few times.
Because it depends on what type of business it is and what the objectives of the campaign is. In general, though, I'd say, and I see this a lot with sometimes when I see work that agencies are doing, if it's more for branding than actual conversions, where all the reporting is just about reach and impressions, which, there is value to it. But if you're running conversion ads, that's not what you should be looking at. So depending on the objective, you should have probably 3 to 4 key metrics you're looking at. So if you're running conversion ads and it's an e-commerce business, so obviously your ROAS, your return on ad spend, is probably one of the main metrics you're looking at, as well as your CPA or your cost per purchase. They're probably two of the key ones. Because that goes back to, like I say, understanding your business metrics and, first of all, what ROAS you need to be profitable from the ads in the first place, because you don't want to run ads if they're unprofitable. And then your CPA as well, because then that's what you're paying to acquire a new customer. And then if you know that the value of someone, if they're going to, again, going back to the t-shirt example, if you know the average person over the lifetime buys 10 t-shirts from you and spends £300, then you're going to be happier spending maybe even £40, £50 to get that customer in the first place than you would if you just think, well, they're only buying a £30 t-shirt. So again, like I say, it goes back to understanding your business metrics and what you can afford to spend to acquire a customer. And those are obviously the bottom line metrics are the most important ones to the business. And then kind of higher up the funnel, you're going to want to look at things like CTR to see if people are actually engaging and clicking through. Although these days I'm actually seeing less of a correlation with CTR and performance than, again, about a year ago. So it goes back to kind of at the start when you first start running ads and you're first testing them in the first 2-3 months of looking and seeing what there's a correlation with, because sometimes there isn't a huge amount of correlation with things like CTR and CPC and the ROAS down the line. But yeah, so generally as a rule, things like CTR and CPC, you're going to want them to be at a certain kind of level to be profitable. Which is normally under about £1 or $1 cost per click, and ideally above about 1% CTR. They're sort of baseline things. But like I say, if you don't see much correlation between them and ROAS and CPA, you don't need to pay a huge amount of attention to them. And then another metric I see for e-com clients, again going back to e-commerce, where I see the most correlation with ads that work in terms of purchases, is the cost per unique add to cart. So that's something that I look at kind of in the middle of funnel and the top of funnel as well. So cost per unique add to cart. Because again, if it's t-shirts, someone can add 5 t-shirts to their basket and it's 5 add to carts, but that's only 1 unique add to cart because it's for one person. Okay. So you want to look at the unique metric rather than just the general add to cart metric.
Okay. And I suppose leading on from the data question, it's a bit of an off-piste one here, but there've been stories we've heard recently and a general distrust of Facebook in relation to their policies around things would be a concerning factor for people. Are the clients you're working with concerned about that? Around, there was reports there a few months ago about them elevating the number of video views that people were getting as part of campaigns. The trend that campaigns looked like they were performing better than they were. So would you suggest looking at metrics outside of what Facebook is telling you? In addition to the actual campaign metrics?
Yeah, so generally we look at Google Analytics as well, because it seems to be more a problem now, and it's possibly partly related to data things and Facebook not having as much control over the data that's coming back, especially with Safari, because Apple have made some updates to Safari recently that seem to be blocking the Facebook pixel. So having to look at stuff in Google Analytics to try and nail down where purchases are coming from and what sort of return we're getting from Facebook and how it's paying off for us. Because there does seem to be issues in Ads Manager with attribution and with purchases coming through but not showing up in Ads Manager because it's being blocked somewhere. If it is in Safari or if there's something else going on, but it definitely seems to be more of a problem in the last 3 to 4 months. So it's something that I know they're working on. Because obviously, people need to be able to see the results in Ads Manager because that tells you, what campaigns you're going to spend more money on and which ones you're going to cut. So the main other place we look at results would be in Google Analytics, or if it's a Shopify store, in the back end of Shopify as well.
And I mean, just finally, I suppose that the Facebook and Instagram connection sort of can't be ignored. So does one size fit all, or are there specific campaign types or ads that work better on each of the or sectors that perform better on each of the channels?
I think creatives may be slightly more important even on Instagram because people are so used to seeing pretty pictures on the platform. So if your creative's bad, it's going to get no attention at all. And stories are somewhere where I'm having quite a lot of fun playing around in stories, trying different things to see what works. And generally, what we call UGC or user-generated content is doing really well in stories because it looks like it's an organic story. and that does better than kind of more staged or more professional types of videos and things like that. But yeah, again, it's it's one of those it depends answers, and some clients and some accounts, one or the other will work noticeably better. We might just run ads on Facebook or just on Instagram. So for example, there was a teeth whitening brand I was running some ads for earlier this year in the US, and Facebook, our CPA on Facebook was approximately double what it was on Instagram. So it's costing us double to acquire a customer as it was on Instagram. So it didn't make any sense for us to run our ads on both platforms. So we just pretty much ran on Instagram. Some of the retarget went on Facebook, but all the cold traffic, all the top of funnel ads, they're all going on Instagram, just because that market, it was cheaper. So you have to kind of, again, it goes back to the data, knowing what to look at in the data, and using that to inform the decisions you're making with your ads. And then yeah, sometimes it'll be, most clients, both of them work to an extent, but there will be some where one or the other just works much better, and then it makes sense to just focus your ad spend on that.
Okay, that's great, Gil. Thanks very much for your time. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.